Hello and welcome back to Some Boy Online. Today we have some big Wallace and Gromit news, and no, it's not to do with Vengeance Most Foul being Oscar nominated. It's actually the discovery of an infamous piece of lost media from the 1990s, known as Wallace and Gromit Alive on Stage in a Grand Night Out. A segment of the show, for the first time ever, has been found and released online. So I've been getting a load of pings on the socials with people going, look, they've found the stage show. So a while back I did a collaboration with Scribbles to Screen in which we go through the history of this stage show and what we know about it. Up until now there have only been a few photographs that exist, and subsequently we've found more bits of evidence here and there, such as a segment on Blue Peter showing off the techno trousers used in the show. Eventually questions surrounding the show got to Nick Park himself, who frankly seemed a bit horrified by the mentioning of the show, and you kind of get the impression that he'd shoved it at the back of his mind.
There was a Wallace and Gromit stage show at one point as well, wasn't there?
There was, yeah.
Did it work on stage?
I don't want to say, but
I'll remind you of your quote on the publicity poster, which was, "It's absolutely brilliant. They put on a grand show."
oh, that's it. Yeah.
So let's take a look at the actual post. The reveal comes from Lost Media Busters on Twitter, and it reads, "Breaking, a news interview featuring a dance number from the long-lost Aardman-produced Wallace and Gromit stage play Alive on Stage in a Grand Night Out has been found by YouTube user Online Outlet UK, and attached is the video. Aside from this YouTuber uploading it, the source isn't really known, but very interestingly the description reads, I do have more lost Wallace and Gromit media if people are interested." That's cool. Can't really think of any more Wallace and Gromit lost media that people are actively searching for, apart from this show really. But yeah, that would be interesting to see. So the video starts kind of glitching in and out of a black and white picture because it's a deteriorating VHS tape. And what this appears to be is a segment of the real show being performed for television. The thing is with this search is that there's never been any evidence that the show was ever recorded. So the fact that they came onto TV and demonstrated a part of it very likely could be the only look we ever have into what the show was actually like, which to be honest I think we see quite enough of. So initially we've got Wallace and Wendelene and Feathers McGraw controlling them. This appears to line up with what we know of the stage show from descriptions, and this would therefore be the Pantheatricon device, which is an invention of Wallace's, which would kind of switch up the theme of the show as it's playing out. And it can be assumed from the description that this is an excerpt from the climax of the show. Because the recording cuts in, we're not entirely sure what this theme is, but it quickly switches to Magic, which we can see as these graphics appear, and interestingly plays some of Julian Nott's original soundtrack from A Grand Day Out. It then switches to musical, and we hear this old music I recognise from one of the Mickey Mouse shorts, one of the originals. I'm sure that can be identified as well. Wallace starts pulling these kind of ribbons out of his pockets during a strange confrontation with Feathers, which then sends him flying to the ground. That was actually quite a good fall. But Wallace stumbles up and then the show kind of stops and the cast are greeted by the presenters. It doesn't mention anywhere what this show is that they're being interviewed on, but I'm sure it'll come out over time. The presenters mention that the show isn't as bad as they imagined, which is kind of a compliment.
We didn't think it would work, did we? But it does work.
It's very clever actually. It's something about the scale. Scale of it. You all do look quite small.
So they said they found the show funny and that it was very clever, and they asked the cast some questions about it. The thing is with this clip, it's kind of a recording of the VHS tape playing on a TV, so the audio is really low and I've had to boost it in order to actually hear it, but even then you can't tell exactly what's being said.
Ollie, your name?
And the
So again, now that we know it exists, a better copy could easily surface at some point. The cast mentioned that Nick Park saw the show last Tuesday, and also that it opened last week at the Peacock Theatre, and it'll be running till the 10th of January. It's thought to have been in 1997, so going off that, you can probably calculate when exactly this took place. An interesting detail about this stage show, which we knew before, is that Feathers McGraw is portrayed by a female actress. This isn't uncommon and kind of reminds us of the Lion King stage show, in which Rafiki is played by a female. But the actress mentions having had conversations with Steve Box, who was the actual animator of Feathers. And it's really interesting that they kind of did the research so extensively and tried to get the character movements and everything right.
You make a great penguin. Once you really watch the video, haven't you? Yeah. You've really got into it. Because I mean, you are the penguin, that's a menacing, cold.
But apparently during this discussion, Steve Box had mentioned that at some point he had imagined Feathers as being a female, which is something I don't think we've ever heard before.
I spoke to Steve Box, who's one of the animators. He animated it, and he did say that he thought of Feathers McGraw as a female, which is really unpleasant.
But yeah, as bizarre as it is, the show seemed well received by the presenters and the audience, which lines up with newspaper articles and reviews that we've seen already. The presenters mentioned that it could have very easily went horribly wrong, and if you're thinking what do they mean by that, I suppose you only have to look at Lenny Henry's interpretation of the characters. The presenters then walk off stage and the actors perform another dance number from the show. Once again we hear a part of the original soundtrack from A Grand Day Out, this time being Building the Rocket, which was popularised by the Wallace Hammering memes. During this part, Feathers bounces up and down on the armchair, I think in imitation of when he bounced on Gromit's bed in the wrong trousers, but yeah, it just kind of comes across as a bit weird. There's then another magic sequence wherein Wendelene is put into this wardrobe, I suppose once again mirroring wrong trousers, when Feathers locks Wallace and Gromit into one. It's worth mentioning the kind of set design is decent as well. It evokes the world of Wallace and Gromit. I don't know if it's just lifted from the actual show or whether it would be different for this performance, but yeah, you can see with the costumes and everything that they've tried. So Wendelene is put into the wardrobe to make her disappear, but then he opens the wardrobe and Wendelene is just kind of stood there looking really unimpressed. Eventually they just release Wendelene because the trick doesn't seem to be working, before opening the wardrobe one last time to reveal Shaun the Sheep. Or alternatively that monster that every kid imagines lurks in their own wardrobe. Or if you want to simplify it even more, it's a bloke wearing stilts on all fours. But that brings us to the reaction of the fans to this discovery. First of all, on Twitter, it's got thousands of likes. It's so big for Wallace and Gromit. This one clip has kind of exploded more than any of the stuff surrounding Vengeance Most Foul. It's kind of crazy. So in the comments, we've got the likes of, how can we go about unfinding this? Nightmare fuel. At least the live action portrayal of Wallace and Gromit in this looks normal compared to that one Lenny Henry sketch. At long bloody last. What the actual beep. This is very cursed in the best way possible. So yeah, I think the fans have summed it up very well. It's always very cool to see something like this kind of resurface after not being seen for so long, and it highlights the collective kind of willpower of the internet when they want to find something like this. They will. Is it really weird? Yeah. The original concept of such a thing is inherently funny. The way that the creators and the presenters of the show were all trepidatious about it, and then it just turns out to be this daft musical number featuring human actors roughly dressed up as the characters, and I think Nick Park mentioned that he wishes it had more of a story.
They did make a very good job of it, I must say, but I think it needed story though, really. That was the problem.
And I can see where he's coming from with that too, because it's a lot of random elements kind of thrown together. But the public reaction at the time was positive apparently, and yeah, the internet is now freaking out over this. So let us know down below what you think of this show, and I suppose in the future we'll see if we'll get these in better quality, or if any other of this suggested Wallace and Gromit lost media comes to light. So be sure to subscribe to the channel for any updates. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.